Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
We are officially going to call the May 8th Cook County Commission on Social Innovation meeting to order. So we will begin with getting the members who are online on the record. Andrea and Nancy, can you help me make sure to capture everyone who is online so that we can note them for their attendance? And then we have Roger Cooley in person as well. Yeah. Will you be able to take a note of all folks online?
Yeah.
If you could just say it out loud, that'd be for the record, please.
Okay, so joining us virtually is ex officio Predico, Commissioner Johnson, Superintendent Killen, Commissioner Mayo, and Commissioner Rayner.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. So we will begin. I know we had approve of the minutes since we do not have quorum at this moment. Oh, by the way, can you make sure that we take note that Brian CC from Commissioner Donna Miller is online as well? We do not have the quorum presently in the room, so we will not be able to approve all of the minutes that need to be approved today unless we're able to get a few more members in person. They may trickle in. Traffic was a little heavy coming in downtown, so we'll give that a few more minutes and come back. We'll come back to that if need be to make the approval of the minutes. So we will just go into the public testimony section right now. Do we have any registered public speakers?
There are no
Okay. And then just as a reminder, anybody listening that would like to participate with public testimony, we ask that we get a public testimony request or written comments submitted 24 hours in advance to the meeting to the following email address. 7th, so it's the number 7 th district.office@gmail.com. Okay. Please note that Commissioner Xochitl Flores has arrived. Okay, and I will turn it over for the presentation
Well, thank
to our
you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
It's my pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine who is going to be our expert witness today. I would assume that many or most of you know Sequane Lawrence. He is an extraordinary social impact leader, and he's been deeply engaged in good work of various stripes throughout the years, decades probably by now. By way of context, he's a founder and the first director of Fathers, Families, and Healthy Communities. I think we've had some testimony from that organization previously. He's also a member of Impact for Equity, the Jane Addams Resource Corporation, Chicago Community Trust African American Legacy Fund, and Revolution Workshop, among others. But today, he is here representing the African American Leadership and Policy Institute, of which he was a co-founder and remains its president. And he's going to be advancing for our consideration the Illinois Justice Project's Home for Good initiative. The idea here being to support affordable housing efforts for returning citizens. So Sequane, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll turn the platform over to you. Very much appreciate whatever you're going to offer to us.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. I think this is very, very important.
Wait, could you hold on one second?
Sure.
Just want to make sure everybody participating
Okay.
virtually can hear what you're
So
saying.
can you make sure to just project a little?
Your Revolution Institute.
Can you all hear us?
Yeah, I think when you moved it around, it got the sound cut
Yeah.
out. But if you keep it
Okay.
still, I think we can. We were able to hear you guys pretty well before.
Okay, yeah, I apologize. I think I might have put the mute button by accident when I muted.
Can you all hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
All right,
perfect.
great.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
So my name is Sequane Lawrence. I am the president and CEO of Revolution Institute. As Mark said, however, today I'm speaking to you on behalf of the African American Leadership and Policy Institute, where I serve as the board president. But before I start, I really want to thank Mark Lane, a dear friend, and the Cook County Commission on Social Innovation for who you all are and for what you are and what you mean to our city, our county, and our state. I also want to thank Paula Wolf and Amadou Germain and Isabel Kennan and the Illinois Justice Project for their profound leadership and for designing what I think is a potentially transformative public policy agenda. Home for Good. For me, it is an example of human-centered intellectual production and leadership grounded in an ethical and moral vocation. Their advocacy and policy concerns are data-driven, research-based, evidence-based, and calls for a strategic investment in our people, our families, our city, county, and in our state. More importantly, their vision and practice is informed by a deep-seated demand for justice. They've identified a particular existential crisis and jumped into the breach on behalf of those with the least and for all of us. And so I want to thank them again. And as I said earlier, I'm the board president for ALPI. I just want to take a minute to say who we are. Our vision is we like to see an objective information is researched upon which intelligent public policy, like what goes on here, that dramatically impacts the African American community can be formulated, articulated, and implemented. Our mission is to act as an independent and action-oriented resource, which clarifies and advocates policies that effectively respond to critical issues that impact the African American community. And why are we advocating for Home for Good? For us, Home for Good aligns neatly with 6 of the AALPI pillars, and it's activated by 6 corresponding working groups. And we have folks that populate those working groups, scholars, practitioners, and policy professionals. So I want to go through them and talk about why we think it's important to support Home for Good. One is workforce and economic development. That's one of our pillars. And so Home for Good calls for the building of affordable housing. It seeks $48 million for organizations to create traditional housing units. This will generate construction and other types of jobs for our citizens, some returning citizens, and could catalyze expanded economic development in subsequent years. Second pillar, health and wellness. Many of the homeless we have in our city, county, and state are individuals who have acute physical and mental health challenges, often simply as a result of not having a place to stay on a protracted basis. So it's not episodic. It's not periodic. A third is criminal justice. It is a sign for us of moral bankruptcy and injustice to not provide returning citizens a second chance. All right, a second chance at redemption, reform, and respect. A significant starting point is making sure returning citizens have affordable, stable housing upon their return. The fourth pillar, education. The policy of the appropriation requires that returning citizens are supported in workforce training and education. AALPR argues that the training should be sector-driven and in industries welcoming to returning citizens and where workers can earn at least $20 per hour. A fifth pillar is family strengthening. A stable place to stay for returning citizens can pave the way for family strengthening, particularly between non-custodial fathers and now mothers who are desperately seeking to have a safe space for their children and family to visit when they come back to the community, creating and reestablishing indispensable family and communal bonds. And six, housing. Affordable housing in general is a right. For us, it is not a luxury. Okay. So Home for Good expands and sustains proven models. And I'm glad to see Safer here, Foundation. You know a little bit about this. Two statewide reentry pilots, Safer Foundation and TAB. I want to make sure.
Task is here as well.
Task is here as well. Oh, well, before I do that, let's just go to the slide and I'm gonna return to that. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll talk about the models, the proven models, but let's get to the slides. So, as you can see, slide one, we get into the meat of it now. Home for Good is a $103 million appropriation to act to expand successful housing program and support services for people who have been incarcerated and people living in CBI programming, who have been incarcerated and people in CBI programming. And that's community violence intervention. So Home for Good is allocated to the item in the CJA, who will grant to community organizations the program implementation. A coordinating body of the two state agencies will oversee the program. Home for Good is designed to stabilize community, support successful reentry outcomes by meeting the needs of people at risk of gun violence and or with arrest or conviction record. Home for Good is a response to discrimination against people with records looking for rental housing. 45% of the people leaving IDOC are unemployed for 3 years, making market rate rental housing inaccessible. Only 34 affordable and available homes exist for every 100 extremely low income Illinois renters. Existing homelessness supports are inaccessible for people leaving prison. In addition to endless anecdotes, data shows how prevalent this problem is. For instance, 60% of community violence intervention program participants request support finding and securing housing, 6 out of 10. 60% of men and 40% of women living unsheltered and homeless in Chicago are formerly incarcerated. Half of Home for Good's funding is allocated towards addressing the housing shortage. 48 million to increase housing stock, addressing the housing shortage and securing housing specifically for people with records. This portion will build transitional and permanent housing units across Illinois, reserved for people with records for at least 10 years. This expands the existing housing for justice involved individuals program in the existing housing for individual justice programs. 3 million for the Home for Good Institute goes to train support service organizations on housing development and provide messaging resources to support re-entry housing development. Home for Good funding is allocated towards meeting people's immediate need as well. 29 million to provide long-term rental subsidies to people with records. People can pay up to 30% of their income in these cases. This expands the existing reentry rental assistance program approved by the Illinois General Assembly in 2018. This is important. 18 million to provide wraparound supports to program participants, providing a accompaniment, case management, and connecting them to healthcare, workforce development training, employment, and more. This builds off of known best practices from existing reentry and CBI models. Home for Good will serve and stabilize over 4,000 people each year across Illinois, providing rental subsidies, housing navigation, reentry navigation, and case management, and more. It will create 160 new traditional and permanent housing units statewide for people with records, connect and coordinate support services to maximize impact, produce 650 million over 3 years and reduce recidivism costs and economic input from jobs created. And in the sectors here, housing, construction jobs, and jobs from workforce development programs. And at AALPI, we think that those jobs should be sector driven. We know where the sectors are that are welcoming to this population, and we think there should be a sizable investment in those industries and those sectors. So those are the slides. I just want to say a couple more things. And this, what I was talking about before we jump into the slide. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this policy is because we were trained as practitioners and as scholars that our models need to be research driven. They have to be evidence based. They need to have demonstrated in some ways efficacy, right? And we benefit from having 2 statewide reentry pilots. Safer Foundation and Task demonstrate a 33% decline in participants' recidivism rate when providing housing and support services to returning residents. Violence intervention programs have seen participants' rate of arrest drop by over 70% when supporting and educating people at a higher risk of gun violence. These models, which serve as the basis for Home for Good, demonstrate potential to create and maintain strong and safe communities to support people's integration into them and save taxpayers money. The social return on investment from Home for Good. The Home for Good program invests $103 million to stabilize people with arrest and conviction records by meeting their basic needs. The benefits include taxpayer savings to reduce recidivism and incarceration rates, as we said before, decreased community violence, decreased rates of homelessness, and increased economic activity. And let me just say something on a personal note. Even on the way here, when I'm downtown, and it's where I see it mostly, I see a lot of African-American men on the corner, and now women, mostly men. And I've seen this for years, and it always breaks my heart. And I'm looking at this, and you think this is just a homeless person, this is a person without, this is a person maybe with a mental challenge. What I did not understand until Amadou Dramé at the Illinois Justice Project made me understand that a large percentage of them are returning citizens. They don't have a place to stay. And this is what's leading to a lot of what we're seeing. And this is a problem. I think there's a moral, ethical problem, but this makes no sense to us for us to continue down this road. It's costing us an extraordinary amount of money. It has a huge social cost to our city and to our state. And this is something that we can do something about. So I feel really passionate about this. And I want to thank Mark again for staying on me to do this.
Thank you.
So the results of a partial cost benefit analysis for Home for Good. Well, the $103 million appropriation represents only 0.22% of the state's $55 million. So these are pennies, right? And it gets at solving a huge existential problem. I want to say that again. We're talking about 0.22% of the state's budget. The most quantifiable savings that will result from Home for Good is a decreased former involvement with the criminal legal system, and Safer could say a lot about that. In 2018, the Illinois Citizen Policy Advisory Council estimated that a single recidivism event costs $193,000. And this is adjusted for 2024 inflation, including taxpayer victimization and indirect costs. The high cost of recidivism And the high recidivism rate, which is 36, almost 37% over 3 years, means that Illinois spends over $1 trillion on recidivism costs each year. If funded at $103 million, Home for Good would serve approximately 4,100 system impacted people annually through housing support services. And in addition to the people helped by long-term investment in new permanent and transitional housing infrastructure. Home for Good budget is $51 million for developing transitional and permanent housing units for people with records. The calculated future value of these 160 additional units, in addition to the economic impact of in terms of the construction jobs created through this endeavor, totals over $90 million within 3 years. Home for Good also budgets $47 million for support services and housing vouchers, estimated to serve around 4,100 people, as we said before, without intervention, and expected 37% of the participants will return, as we said before, within 3 years. And that's a cost of $310 million on recidivism and reincarceration costs. What we know is that it's likely that at least half of these people will be unemployed for the first 3 years when they get out, with an expected collective average income of $14,000 a year. And I would argue that that's not enough. Many people rely on state funding support to meet their basic needs because it's not enough. However, with this policy providing housing and supports, the recidivism rate is expected to decrease to less than 14%, meaning the state would expect to save around $120 million in recidivism costs. The workforce development supports included in Home for Good will lead to higher levels of employment and likely higher incomes, with economic contribution estimated to be at least $283 million. Thus, through investing $47 million in housing and the support services, an estimated 3,000 system impacted people, our state can expect to save over $500 million over the next 3 years. Therefore, from just 1 year of investing in services and housing through this policy, our state can expect over $650 million in government savings and revenue generated by economic activity over the next 3 years. And this represents a 1 to 6 ratio of return. So over time, these benefits will continue to grow as more people access services, more affordable units become available, and the costly cycle of recidivism is slowed and eventually stopped. Additional benefits of Home for Good. Over the last several years, studies have been conducted to measure the impact of community violence intervention strategies. Every dollar invested in violence prevention saves up to $19 in reduced healthcare, criminal, and legal costs. By making the Home for Good fund available to CVI and reentry organizations, this proposal leverages the length of both kinds of service providers, bolstering high-performing reentry programs and similar CVI programs with additional housing and support service options will help build on these early findings. Based on the CVI findings, the Home for Good support services funding could save the state up to $900 million through decreased involvement in gun violence. And by the way, it costs $12 million for every person shot and killed, and another $200,000 for every person just shot. It's expensive, and it's unconscionable that we haven't done anything about this or enough about this today. If fully funded and properly implemented, the Home for Good model will have a significant cost-saving impact throughout Illinois. In addition to its benefits for program participants and their communities, the wide-ranging benefits could be challenging to quantify. But even at the simplest level, this program would save the state money and lead to economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very powerful argument. Questions or comments from the commissioners, please?
Mills, please. Commissioner Mills?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Very impressive numbers, especially like the breakdown to the types of both dollars and the percentages on those who are being potentially served. But you did not talk about families and children at all. And you probably have some numbers available as to the number of lives of minors that are involved in these with these individuals, because many of them, I imagine, don't come alone into housing. So can you speak to something about the children, please? Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question, Commissioner, if I understand it correctly. Now I'm gonna put my father's family and healthy communities hat on now, because this is where we've done a lot of this study. And I don't have numbers except to say that we know that, particularly with fathers, and I know now we study a lot of what affects non-custodial fathers coming out of prison. What we know is that when the fathers, and again, I'm gonna say mothers because we have an increase in females, are not involved socially and economically because they've been incarcerated, and when they come out and not able to have a place to stay, right, and they don't have a way of taking care of themselves, what we know is that those children are more than likely to end up in the system. This is what we've seen, right? I don't have numbers per se. Maybe somebody else, I invite others to join in this conversation. I don't have the number of children that affects. I can tell you from what I know in my own lived experience and anecdotally, and from the reports of my fathers, we've been serving for over 15 years. It's a huge issue, and I'm glad you raised it. And let me also say that the Illinois Justice Project probably has data to that effect, or that speaks to that. I don't have that data today.
Thank you. Other?
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. Lawrence, thank you for your presentation. It's very informative. Can I be added to the record?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Commissioner.
Couple questions. So along the line of the breakdown question, do you have like some data that can differentiate between the largest groups of the target population between the city, the county, and the rest of the state? Like the majority of the $103 million that will go toward service providers that may be ready to serve this demographic are more likely to have a bigger impact in the city, the county of Cook, or throughout the state? Like, where is our biggest bang for the buck, right? Because this is the state appropriation that you're trying to get. Now it's got to serve all of the state, not just the county or the city. So that's my first question. Like, where are we seeing the biggest impact?
Well, I can tell you again, and we had this conversation with the Illinois Justice Project. And what I'm prepared to say today, that the majority of it is in Chicago. But it's interesting, when I brought this up and talked about it being Chicago-centric and focused mostly on Black and Brown communities, it was made clear to me that this is a serious state issue downstate. And this does wonders for my education, right? And so I don't know. Here's what I can tell you: the majority of Chicago, whether it's 70%, 80%, I do not know. I do not know. But again, I would defer to our friends at the Illinois Justice Project, who can probably speak to that. I don't know if Harry, if you have a sense of that in terms of this kind of allocation.
Well, I don't have a sense geographically on where the target would be funding. We do know that in terms of those returning from, majority of them return to Chicago,
Right.
Cook County, and within 8 to 10 neighborhoods in that regard.
I can help out with some of that downstate information.
Yeah,
Okay.
there is more downstate,
Like East St. Louis, Cairo,
Mhm.
Rockford.
Yeah.
Missouri.
Madison and St. Clair County, East St. Louis, Winnebago County, Rockford, of course, Cook County, I think leads the pack in terms of a weighted number, but those parts of the state have very large reentry numbers, and those are defined numbers that DOC, the Department of Corrections, can spit out right away because we know where people are returning home.
Yeah.
Related to the first
Your
question, there's
Yeah,
also the family issue is that they're in these communities, there's a lot of housing that would support this population that are coming home does not necessarily support, where families are located does not necessarily support the reunification of persons coming home from a carceral setting. And so this project is needed because creates an opportunity for families to reunify, to stabilize, and then which contributes to the reduction in recidivism.
Yeah, the reason for my question is one to find out.
Mhm.
You know, I feel a lot of legislation in Chicago centric in general, and you know, this is where we have election up north, but like we always need to be cautious of not forgetting everybody else.
That's right.
You know, like East St. Louis,
That's right.
Cairo, there's some areas that are so heavily impacted in negative ways. A lot of things that we're seeing here in Cook County and Cotton. So the population is smaller, but like if all the money comes up this way, then pains go down there too. They don't ever get.
Yeah, it's a very, very good point. It's a very good point. But the good news is that we know we have, we can answer that with a level of specificity. I just don't know that breakout. But, yeah.
My second question is, you guys had a status hearing today in the state in the House, and do you have the update? You know that?
Or the Illinois Justice Project.
Yeah, I think it went, it's a status hearing. So
I don't know. I don't have an update.
let's look it up. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I do. I have nothing to share.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Commissioner Johnson, you had your hand raised earlier. Did you have a question, or did you want to chime in on anything additionally that you already shared?
Other than Task is very honored to be a part of this Home for Good movement. We think that it is definitely worth the investment, and we want to keep working to bring it home. Not despite everything else going on with funding in Springfield and in DC, we think that it's worth the investment.
How did I do? Did I do? Did I?
Did a great job.
I prosecute. Yeah,
That's the right answer.
Wanted to quit my.
Sequane, I've got a couple of questions for you. So this is part of the budget process right now, correct?
Yes.
And I see who your sponsors are in the House and Senate. I assume these are the lead sponsors and there are
Yes.
others who join them?
Yes, I don't know the other ones though, but those are the lead.
Okay, and in as much as this is state legislation that's moving forward, how can this commission and the county be helpful in moving it forward?
No, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. I think, and this is our normal refrain is getting in touch with our legislators, right? It's hitting the, I think, street heat. I don't know if we're at that point, but I think that we're at that point where folks need to, be on the phone, go talk to their legislators, and just rally people around it.
Do you have a sense of the level of support for the legislation within the General Assembly?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. And it's only because I'm just here as a real advocate and partner with the Illinois Justice Project. Isabel, who was in Springfield and who's been really beating the pavement, probably has a better feel for
Okay,
this.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
I would add that, when you look at the Home for Good Coalition, it's a pretty broad-based coalition, not just here in part of the state, but not the state. Well, down there the past week or so with the Home for Good advocacy day, I can say that I saw on the ground a good deal of support and attentiveness for what 50+ organization is.
Yeah, saw that.
So I think there was two more questions. Commissioner Raymer, you had your hand up. And then Commissioner Flores, did you also have it? Okay. We'll go to Commissioner Raymer if you still have a question or a comment.
You're muted, Wendy.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
On my phone here, sorry. Okay, there we go. Sequane, it's so good to see you, and I know I owe you an email. Thanks for this presentation. I had a couple questions. One, Mark helped me answer. I'm like, is this already passed? Is it going into voting? So that's good to know. My other one was, there was something you said, let me see, it was for the homelessness support systems, and they are inaccessible to people leaving prison. What do you mean by that? Why are they inaccessible? Is it just because they just don't have the resources or understanding of where they are, or they don't qualify for them?
That's one. Two is discrimination.
Okay.
Three, there is a resistance or reluctance to provide housing. So I got a building, someone comes and wants to rent. I know or find out that they're a returning citizen, and I figure out every way I can to not rent to them. Money. So the earlier part, when the resources. Yeah, but when you read the analysis from Illinois Justice Project, they can list all of the above as the reasons why. And I think, again, I would say for who I have tremendous respect for and who like knows this, can talk about in general why folks coming out have a hard time accessing affordable housing and transitional housing for that matter.
So it's all the things you just mentioned. There are also further constraints on those folks that are on the street in terms of their ability to open and accessible housing is complicated by on the registry and along with that. In addition, there are things just part of a short research group that we're helping work with homeless with the coalition of funds and homelessness, increasing level of homelessness justice involved. Also increasing levels of distance in general seems to be shift like thinking authoritarian type, thinking that we're moving back to the hard on crime type of mentality. This is not my background, not my neighbor. But also in addition, when you think about housing subsidies, where you're trying to get independent small landlords, small housing projects to accept this population that's just a result of doing it. You'd be certainly Cook County and the fair housing reinforce the end discrimination.
Is there another question pending?
It's what you have.
Please.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Not
Lucy.
necessarily a question. I wanted to thank you for this information. I head up the county's Cook County Bureau of Economic Development, coordinated very closely with the Justice and work alongside them with housing, in particular housing for individuals. So I appreciate the data, especially in these times when we're really trying to work with other agencies, state agencies, to make a case for continuing and or expanding on some of the work that we have done. Having this level of data that we can demonstrate impact, overall impact to all these various areas that touch on this is so important. So I appreciate you joining us and providing this important.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I do have one ancillary question. Given your expertise in affordable housing, just curious as to what your opinion is, and we're talking about models now, of the green social housing model that was just passed yesterday for the benefit of the commission. The idea is for the city-owned developer to make loans to builders of affordable housing who sell their environmentally friendly buildings back to the city. And this, obviously, Roger, fits in with your work as well in terms of community-owned assets or government-owned assets. But it's kind of transitioning between your work and pre-existing work that Roger Cooley has led. I'd be curious to learn what you think about that. And I know there'd been some controversy, and then all of a sudden, just about all of the aldermen came around, which I'll just leave that there. But what might you think of that?
Yeah, no, well, look, here's the thing. I will just, I'm not speaking for the ALPI.
No, think for you.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I expect.
My own view is that it's an important project. And then I because with Revolution Institute, I could just maybe talk about Revolution Institute now. We have a kind of an environmental and sustainability ethic in terms of our work, and then also with Revolution Workshop, where I'm a founder. So both of these workforce development and social enterprises have a concern around sustainability. And Revolution Institute is a community economic development organization that seeks to leverage markets and market forces and incentives to do good and do community development. I like it. I like the idea of selling back. I like the idea of it.
Yeah.
I've not gotten into the weeds.
I mean,
but philosophically, I'm in favor.
One concern that had been raised was that the portion of units that would be market rate rather than affordable might lead to this work being done outside the most disinvested communities.
Yeah.
And again, the city council came around and, strongly supported this ultimately. But I'm just because, we have these issues of fairness and equity as well. I'm just curious to see how that impacts your thinking and informs your recommendations around models.
Yeah. I'm not so sure I would have supported it.
Okay.
I think it's complex. I have always been concerned about private developers and the role they play in the affordable housing space. And I think it's complicated because I think I have seen models where the margins are such that it makes it hard for them in the traditional kind of economy for them to be able to build affordable housing.
Without subsidies.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And so it's complicated and because what I find oftentimes they're the ones with the capacity, the experience, the track record to get it done and get it done on time and to get it done at cost. And so until we build the capacity, and another reason why I like this public policy, because there's significant investment in building the capacity for community organizations to do this. But without that, I think that we are overly reliant on the private market and private developers. And from everything I've seen, they need subsidies. How much? I'm not sure. So while philosophically, there is some chagrin. It's a practical matter. I haven't figured out like how you do it. But without this, I just haven't figured it out.
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners?
I have one just on that part. So I saw the long list of support folks. I feel like I know some organizations. I do, but I also know some organizations that maybe would like to support this. I know you know, we're getting really close to the deadline for the budget at the state level. So I presume that it is of immediacy to show support
Yes.
if something like this is gonna be utilized. So I just wanted to, you know, highlight that if there, if I do know any organizations,
Mhm.
where do I send them to support this? How can we make sure that they're connected to that base to show wide range of support? So that's
Yeah.
my first question,
Yeah.
and I have just a follow-up on another
Okay.
thing.
Okay. Well, to answer that question, and it's on the fact sheet, and I apologize, I should have probably said more about this on the front end and in the middle, but Isabel Kennan
Okay,
and her numbers here and the website for Home for Good, her email address is actually here. She's the point person for the Illinois Justice Project. And that's where, or whom they should contact.
okay.
Mhm.
Sounds good. Duly noted. The other comment I wanted to make to your last comment regarding that there is organizations and folks like grassroots individuals that have maybe done this or have really like been able to kind of bring this model forward. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Inner City Muslim Action Network or Iman. Yes,
Oh,
because they
yeah.
have the reentry program in which they
Yeah.
help with training,
Mhm.
building the homes,
Yeah.
helping with permanent housing and support systems. So I wonder if that's the type of model that you're doing on a way other like bigger stage or bigger I guess an initiative pushing for that especially because of the wraparound services that you talked about that
Yeah.
addresses the 6 pillars that you mentioned
Mhm.
earlier on.
I really appreciate that question. Iman is the model for me,
Okay,
for the reason you just stated.
okay,
They work with the green reentry. I work with them, so I'm biased. I consider them friends and I have MOU with them through Revolution Institute.
Okay.
I work very closely with them, but it's because I think they're so good.
Mhm.
And I think that they have a comprehensive model. I like the vision. And yeah, that's the kind of organization that we should be supporting to build this transitional and this permanent housing for the returning citizens.
I know Cook County in the past has had relationships with them and has supported through CVI type of grants, which help,
Mhm.
you know, even further some of those other support systems. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're also supportive and that you
Yeah.
give the you know thumbs up of approval. So
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks
And
for-
organizations like them. And so I
Right,
think,
yeah.
but I think for me, that's a model that we should be emulating.
Okay.
I think they have it right sized. They're clear and they're disciplined, and they're focused on the problem.
Yeah, sure, sure.
I'll let Commissioner Cooley go. I already went, so, but I do have a question based on what Chair said, and then
Isn't that, so for, this is for Illinois returnees from the Illinois. Is there a program for Cook County folks exiting the Cook County jail?
There's smaller scale, but not
Like,
permanent
especially
housing.
about the housing.
Permanent housing is done through like grants, so we have grants that are with other entities, other organizations, not building new. We don't necessarily have that. There have been conversations. I know the Justice Advisory Council has brought that up on like what other support systems we can. And the sheriff's office, along with some other partners, have MOUs in place and have funds to do that. I will say we do not see the same amount of, I guess, obviously for the DOC, but the reality is that there is a lot of recidivism that happens, and I believe, and I'm sure others at the county believe that that is a really pivotal moment when people are about to leave because folks in jail are technically, you know, they're innocent, they're not convicted in any way. So although they're supposed to be there temporarily, like it's very important. It is pretrial, so like figuring out either housing or figuring out support systems, connection to legal services, connections to like family support and social services is a priority. But to your point, there's things being worked out, but not to this scale.
So, sorry, last column. I can't remember, can the commission endorse legislation?
What we've done in the past is we've provided like testimony or like a witness slip or a letter of support.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that something we could authorize? We would like to witness for this.
Yeah, we could do
Okay.
that. Mhm.
Because Rami and Iman are model for you, you said they are the model.
Yeah.
Would you consider like, Inglewood to be an area where you want this to launch?
That's a
Like
good
once, and, you know, once this is funded?
Yeah, that's a good question. I appreciate that question, if I understand it correctly. I would say they are a community where it should be launched. I'm not sure it's the community. Now, having said that, what I can say, because I worked there, I worked in that community and I have strong relationships with the CBOs over there. But Humboldt Park is another, right? And here's what I mean. What we value are communities where if you were to do an asset map, you see a lot of activity, you see strength, you see capacity, you see institutions with knowledge, experience, who are reflective, they have constituency, credible. And so Inglewood, Teamwork Inglewood, Iman, I could just go down the list. And so to me, that is definitely a community I think that we would benefit if as a state if we launched it there. Yeah, yeah,
When you say humble, you mean like humble?
yeah. Mhm. Yeah. A lot of assets, organizations with real capacity and who understand it. And have returning citizens. I mean, that's,
Yeah, political leadership to
right. Right. Absolutely.
the.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's the criteria I use.
Any other comments or questions? Sir?
Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is Joseph. Thank you for inviting me here.
I'm glad you can make it.
This is a really great program to be implementing, and I was just like, I think you said 4,100 people. This would house maybe more. I think I'm seeing right here, it says over 4,000 people each year. And so I was just looking up the current, as of in December 31st, 2024, Illinois Department of Corrections had a population of 28,840 inmates. So, or individuals in custody, and so that seems like it's a good, if you can, it's over 10% of the current population in IDOT. So, I don't know how many people get out of, or what is the reception rate in terms of that population here, this 28,000 people? How many people are getting back on the streets and, but it seems like 4,000, if you can house 4,000 individuals, that would be a good impact. But I guess, yeah, that was one thing I was thinking about is just, compared to how many people leased from IDA, what does that 4,000 number mean? And if it isn't all the people, are you focusing on people that have been incarcerated after a certain amount of time, or is this like a 6 months out, or is it, 5 years out? Just curious on how prioritized based on, when people are released from.
Here's what I'll say. When you talk to the Illinois Justice Project and you talk to, I think even if you talk to Safer, and I don't need to speak for them, they're here, or Task, you want them when they come out, because what you don't want is you don't want them to return. And so you want to touch base with them as soon as they get out. Right? And so that's, and then as soon as you get to them. So if you've been out 3 years and you're just now going to Safer or going to one of the community-based organizations providing services, then you have to be ready to receive them. So whether you get in touch with them one day after you get out, or for some reason you touch base with an institution 2 years after being out. What we know is we have to get folks out. Because what I've seen, and this is why I'm so passionate about this and why I'm here, with, I'm a community economic development technician. I don't do this work. I'm running around trying to find businesses to convert to work on co-ops. I'm trying to get folks jobs in the manufacturing and energy business. I reached out, and again, I thank Mark for pushing me to do this. I reached out to my friends that did justice project, and because I talked about what I was seeing on the street. This is how it came. And Amadou Germain made me understand the intersection between what I was seeing on the street and returning to, which I got to admit I had no real appreciation. Made some assumptions, but when you get the data, and so for us, it's whether you get it, you're my first day out and I need help, or I've been out 2-3 years. If I understand your question.
But yeah, I was even thinking about, based on the people who are newly leaving my Illinois Department of Corrections, but you even drawn the scope out more by even talking about people who are homeless right now that have been released in the last 2 or 3 years. So I think, that even falls on the importance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or even that other layer that you talked about, veterans.
And I didn't even talk about veterans.
You know what I mean? It's
right.
You have.
We did, but
there's so many layers.
Yeah, no, it's and I'm glad you brought it down. No, it's just a serious problem.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners?
One last comment that I want to just make sure to highlight, because county has tried to address is the behavioral health aspect to it as well. You talked about health and wellness. And I think, to your point, a lot of folks that are unhoused many times have to, or that are criminally involved, have substance abuse, other behavioral health issues, and addressing that and finding really good partners is something to take into consideration. And I think, the county has really prioritized it. I would also encourage this coalition to look at what the state is doing about that, because they've completely rolled back all behavioral health. Not this year, I didn't mean to alarm you, Roger, but I think in the past, few decades of how much funding. So I know that oftentimes we see that either municipalities or counties and local governments are having to deal with that. It's become really difficult, especially understanding that there will be constraints with that. So I would also encourage that also to be a part of the model, which seems like it's one of the pillars that you've highlighted as well. So.
Yeah, no, I would just say I think that was a real mistake, and I'll just go on record for a previous administration to shut down mental health in the city of Chicago. And I don't know what we've done an analysis of the result of that on this population we have to talk about today. But I think it was an error. I think it was a serious mistake. And now those facilities are open again, and I'm just glad.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Sequane, thank you so very much for bringing all this to our attention. A very powerful presentation, very compelling. And, I'd love to get the commission following on Commissioner Cooley's idea to offer its support for the legislation, so long as there is consensus in doing so. And I suspect there probably is. And so thanks for educating us, and thanks for all your work in all the different areas that you're driving the agenda. We're deeply grateful to you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
And if you'd like to stick around for the balance of the meeting, we'd love to have you. If you want to take off, we'd understand that too.
I'll stick around. I'm learning some things there.
Okay, well, that happens from time to time. Okay, thank you. Do we now have a quorum to approve?
I think we're missing two. We're missing two people.
Okay.
Yeah. In person, yeah.
Got it.
The problem is we have to have quorum in person.
Okay,
yeah.
good. Well, Madam Chair, with your permission, I think we can move on to reports of our working
Yes.
groups. Would that be appropriate? And Roger, I think we very neatly set the stage for your report. And since you have now volunteered moving the agenda here on this point as well, I think the public and community-owned business ventures to fill market gaps. I think we've already, this is a logical transition from Mr. Lawrence's excellent presentation. So I'd be happy to defer to you.
Yeah, so there's been some conversations with the president's office about working this forward. That's involved Commissioner Flores as well. Again, the notion of how the county helps support making sure that there's assets that are normally provided in many communities, but not in others, such as groceries, affordable housing, childcare, potentially banking services. But trying to figure out what's the right pathway to get the county leadership to be supportive of creating a plan for how that could involve not only county resources, but also private agencies, communities, funders, investors in this work as well. So still trying to figure out is it a formal task force is the right approach, or is it more of a working group that has less
not an official
Yeah.
task force.
Yeah.
More informal.
Yeah.
Informal.
So the
And that
process,
may lower the stakes to allow it to move forward. So there's no-
yeah, the process would be different. I think that that's what's being considered through a formal task force. You need approval of the board and you need public meetings and you need a lot of that. And quorum becomes an issue sometimes with, ensuring that, things move along. I think particularly because one of the stakeholders that Commissioner Cooley hasn't mentioned yet is the city of Chicago. So that's another partner that we're looking into that. So trying to get everybody, on the same page and understanding, and then also just getting the official approval and thumbs up from folks is what we're working on right now.
Yeah, so whichever pathway allows it to move forward is what we're trying to get to. And then come back hopefully in the next next month or so we can get.
So the hope would be that there might be something for the commission to consider at its next meeting. Is that the idea? Or potentially even before that?
To consider, or at least say, hey, here it is, and other folks who would want to participate as that working group moves forward. I think that would be more an invitation for folks to participate in.
Okay.
And
All right.
have it live less formal.
Well, thank you for your hard work. And if I can be helpful in any way, I'd be eager to do
Yes,
so.
that'd be great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Commissioner Alston, do you have a report on your working group?
The short answer would be no.
What's the longer answer?
Longer answer is that we're still moving forward with some of the fundamental blocking and tackling on the research effort in partnership
With Chapin Hall?
Sequane Hall, also coming out of participating in your social enterprise forum and the UIC forum. Following week, I have started to reach out to folks about the idea of convening a kind of design thinking solution development type small conference. And as that begins to evolve and have more legs around it, we see that as a way to engage more folks, public safety, community well, working groups to develop tangential directions to build.
Yeah, I should point out, Commissioner Alston, once upon a time, there was an interest in a collaboration with the Cook County Health Foundation. And as I think I have mentioned to you in the past, I'm now serving as its legal counsel. So if I can be helpful in bridging or brokering, a targeted relationship where there might be some utility in advancing our agenda here, I'd be happy to do so.
No, I think that would be good because it would provide another basis in terms of the framework.
Yeah, and that's also an area where the Cook County Health and the foundation will be working on this behavioral health initiative that Commissioner Anaya has mentioned. I think these things all tend to come together.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Commissioner Raymer, do you have a report for us on your working group?
Hi, I don't have anything to report, but thank you for asking. I would like to say I'm definitely supportive of a letter of support for the Home for Good policy vote coming up on behalf of the commission. Even on a personal level, that's something I've been doing this year as myself, just writing in letters of support for bills. So I think any one of us on an individual basis should be doing those types of things as well. And I have one just tidbit of information related to affordable housing. The Chicago Community Trust is convening a bunch of funders. We've had one kickoff meeting, and the next one is next week about the role of philanthropy, either corporate or foundational philanthropy, on the affordable housing, crisis going on in our region. So this information, Sequane, that you provided today is so helpful because, it's trying to boil the ocean out there, but what are the real important things that have the highest impact and the highest potential for, really transformative change when it comes to philanthropy? This type of data and information is really helpful. So I will be bringing this along to the next convening on that topic. So thank you.
Thank you,
Hey, can I ask a
Commissioner.
question?
Of course.
So, Commissioner Raymond, Wendy, is that on the 13th at the Gene Siskel Theater?
No, it's at the trust's office on State Street.
Okay, so I know they're doing something on housing
Oh, okay.
on the 13th at the Gene Siskel Theater.
I don't think it's during the day. I think it's on a Thursday next week.
Okay.
But yeah, just testing the waters on, is there a big play that, can happen with the trust's, kind of reach and convening power on perhaps a public-private, alliance on something to just really go deep in on the affordable housing crisis. So, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramey.
Mm-hmm.
In an absence of a quorum, is there a mechanism by which we can agree to a letter of support, or how would you suggest? Might we poll the commission? Or?
I think the letter of support does not need, it's not a formal, like anything that we're passing, so it should be fine without it. Yeah.
That would be over your signature then?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should poll the commissioners who are here in person and virtually to see if we do have a consensus. I suspect we do. But would you like to formulate
Sure.
that?
So if you agree with that, you could just raise your hand. If there's specific opposition, we'll take that vote after.
Let's put it the other way. Does anybody oppose? Or hearing none, I would treat that as unanimity.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So we'll work on that.
Okay, appreciate that. I do have one point to mention as well.
Yes.
And that is Commissioner Alston mentions the Social Enterprise Symposium that was held on April 4th at UIC. It was a very, I think, important initiative where this commission and Social Enterprise Chicago, which is a nonprofit that I am privileged to chair, co-hosted an educational event around market-based solutions to driving positive social change. And I want to thank Commissioner Anaya. I want to thank Nancy, Urelli, who were unbelievable. Yeah, I was about to get to the speakers as well. So yes, and thank you, Sochi, and then Commissioner Cooley and Commissioner Alston and former Chair Garcia. Who now holds another office. And we had some folks from my firm, and we had a number of other county officials, and it was looked at through the lens of business models, entity designs, funding strategies for nascent all the way through seasoned social enterprises, and how the county can be helpful in supporting those efforts, social entrepreneurs and their stakeholders. It was a highly successful event. We had a big turnout, and I hope to do it again. And we have had over the years collaboration between the commission and Social Enterprise Chicago and its predecessor, the Chicago chapter of Social Enterprise Alliance, in having capacity building workshops around the county. We hope to continue to do those as well. We've done several of those over the years. So this is a relationship that I value, and bringing together government and nonprofits, business, philanthropy, and traditional investments, impact investments. I mean, that's what it's all about. They say strength in numbers. Reality is that collaborations that are deep and broad on a multi-sectoral basis, which is really a reflection of this commission as well, is the way stuff gets done. And so those of you who participated, I'm deeply grateful to you. And those of you who did not participate, we look forward to having you participate in the next one. So thanks to each of you.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say on that is that we actually had people even from Indiana come to the symposium, which was really exciting and showed a big, footprint and a big, I think, a platform for folks to learn about it. There's a lot of folks that were very curious. So also want to thank Mark for, working with us, and also just, making sure that we were kind of on task. So want to just, send my thank you publicly to Vice Chair Lane.
Thank you. It was clearly a win-win, and I'm deeply grateful.
Can I just make one comment? Sorry, I missed it. There's a House Bill 3751, Illinois Reset, that's asking for employee social enterprises that be part of the budget. I can send that to you guys.
You said 3751?
House Bill 3751. It didn't come out of committee. It won't be heard this week. So we're a little bit disappointed there. Yeah, we're working with an employee social enterprise group, a coalition, and we brought in Reset away from California.
Since you mentioned that, I also have a bill pending.
Please, bring it up. Talk about it.
It would create a new form of trust in Illinois called the virtuous trust, and can be used for business succession planning, for estate planning, but for our purposes, perhaps most relevant for community development purposes, where the trust can have beneficiaries who are not ascertainable by name or by relationship. So a community, for example, and I think this would supersede community benefits agreements in a much more meaningful way, because communities will actually have an economic stake in the venture rather than merely a contract rights. So you might want to follow that one. I drafted that one. Yeah, thank you.
Of course you
And
did.
Roger, you had a bill as well, correct?
Yes, it is now, after 5 trips. Springfield.
For 5 trips.
It got turned in, so that was to build upon the good food purchasing policy, which the county passed.
Right.
The county was implementing that originally came from the commission. Was to get the state to adopt the same policy for their purchasing procurement. And of course, corrections is one of the biggest purchasers of food in the state. Which emphasizes local fair worker standards, animal welfare, and sustainability guidelines. We've progressed it after having a year of task force meetings with purchasing agencies. They pushed back at the last minute in the House hearing. Witness slipped against it the night before, so then it got pushed back and didn't make it out. So it's getting converted back to a House Joint Resolution 27 is the bill number.
What is it again?
House Joint Resolution 27. It's now moving over to the Senate. Well, we'll hopefully pass that in the House this week. Move over to the Senate next week. Which recreates a good food task force that will then do a full study of existing state procurement guidelines, procedures, policies as well as the monthly amount that they're spending, and then recommend 3 agencies to run a pilot.
Well, good luck with that.
And what's yours again,
The
Mark?
virtuous trust bill has unanimously passed the Senate and the House, and now is in the Senate. I
What's
should,
the bill number?
I should know that off the
Okay,
cuff, and I
okay. Do
don't.
you want to send it over so? we can
Sure.
send over?
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
Sure.
Trust bill.
Virtuous trust.
And then there's, so there's a long article in Investigate Midwest that just came out this afternoon about that bill and the process.
About what?
The bill, that whole process of with the bill in Investigate Midwest
Hmm.
just came out this afternoon. And then there's also a bill that's going to allow for the treasurer, state treasurer, to create an investment fund for nonprofits.
That's been tried.
Well, it's, so that bill just made it out of House Committee.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well,
It seems to have more traction.
good luck to us.
Seems to have more,
Let's go all out.
seems to have more traction.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think
Any-
were those your,
That's all I have. But any other
Okay.
comments or announcements for?
yes,
from
any
other-
announcements before we close out?
Silence is golden.
Okay, wonderful. So we will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Brutus, second by Commissioner Flores. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Those opposed, nays. Ayes have it. We're adjourned.
Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.